Hello, it's Lord Slaw here, coming at you with another video, and the topic of today's is the top 5 Fifth Doctor stories, or the top 5 Peter Davison stories. So, Peter Davison's era is pretty safe to say not very good. The quality was very, very low, and there honestly isn't that much good episodes. I mean, okay, it has a few good episodes, but in terms of really, really good episodes, the only ones I consider to that level are the top two. The rest of them, like, that'll be on this list, are good. They're not like anything amazing. And when you've only got two, like, really, really good Stone Cold classics in an entire era, you know you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel a bit. I mean, Matt Smith's era is like that too, except for this one's slightly better than Matt Smith's because, to be honest, there's no episode from his era that I thought was really, really good. But oh well, let's get into it. It is the top 5 Peter Davison stories. So at number 5 we have The Five Doctors. Now I'm going to get a lot of people going, why isn't this higher? This story's amazing. But I'm also going to get a lot of people saying, why was this on the list? It had no story. Well, the thing is, okay, the story isn't like full of plot, but it's pretty well written. It's pretty interesting. It had some good stuff to it, like the secret of the immortality. I find to be quite a good plot twist at the end. And just, the way they brought the Doctors together didn't feel that cheesy, and it worked. And it's just a really good episode to watch. It's a lot of fun. It's a quintessential kind of sum up of the first five Doctors, of Doctor Who. Like, if you're going to start watching the classic series, I'd kind of recommend starting on the Five Doctors because that introduces a lot of stuff. I mean, I know it's meant to be kind of a roundup of a lot of stuff, but instead it actually introduces it quite well at the same time. I mean, sure, there's not much Tom, but I still think it's a really good episode. It's nothing too amazing. I think people go like way over the board of all these specials saying like, oh, they're amazing. Like the Day of the Doctor's another one, but that one's even more overrated. And to be honest, I like the Five Doctors more than that. But oh well, it's a good story. Not as good as some people say, not as bad as some people say, and that's why it comes in at number 5. So at number 4 we have the excellent resurrection of the Daleks. So this is a pretty decent Dalek story. While it isn't in my inner circle of the best Dalek stories, it's still a really good story nonetheless. And the thing I like about this one is how dark it is. I mean, seriously, Dalek stories don't often go this dark, and this is Daleks we're talking about. It has a higher kill count than the Terminator. Oh yes, and it's not like Michael Bay of explosions. They're really kind of just dark, brutal deaths. Especially in the opening with all those people just getting shot with silenced pistols by the policemen. When I was a little kid, because it's like one of the first classic Who stories I watched, those policemen terrified me. I have no idea why, but it's just something about the way they move, the way they just gun people down, showing no emotion. It's creepy, and the Daleks are done pretty well in this episode. I don't feel like they're done too weak, and they do kill a lot of people, and it's how a Dalek story should be, really. And the scene where Davros confronts Peter Davison when he's about to shoot him, or well, so we think. Well, we're not sure if he's going to shoot him, but the scene where Peter Davison pointing a gun at Davros's head is one of the best Davros scenes. It's done so well, and the episode is generally pretty good as well, but maybe not quite up to the standard that that one scene is, because that one scene just excels at being amazing. It's a well written story. I like how dark it is, and that's why it comes in at number 4. So at number 3 we have Kinder. So not everybody is a big fan of the Mara stories, but I am. I quite like them. They're pretty good. But I understand why people don't like them, because the kind of creepy psychedelic kind of thing that they're going for isn't everybody's cup of tea. I personally really like it though. But fair enough if you don't. I don't know, it appeals to me. The kind of ominous darkness inside Tegan's head, and when like the swap the snake tattoos on the arm. That's my kind of stuff. It just works for me. And it has quite a good atmosphere, and if you know me, you know that having a good atmosphere is a huge part of having a good episode. Adric isn't too annoying in this one either. In fact, he isn't really that annoying at all. Todd's a very good character, and I almost wish that she was a companion, to be honest. I really like it. To be honest, I actually liked her more than any of the other companions in this story, which is kind of sad. But oh well, Ginder's a very good story. Not for everybody, but I enjoy it. And if you like the kind of creepy, psychedelic, atmospheric kind of thing, go for it, because it is a very original idea. It's done well, and that's why it comes in at number 3. So at number 2, you have, now please don't scream out in rage, The Caves of Androzani. Yes, I absolutely love this story, and objectively, I think it's the best story of all time. But this list is about personal preference, and even though I think, objectively, this is the Doctor Who story which is closest to perfect. It isn't necessarily my personal favourite, but I love it. It's such a good story. I could go on for hours about how good it is. It's just everything's done so well. It's got great villains. You're not really sure who's the hero, who's the villain. If anybody is, to be perfectly honest, you feel sorry for everybody, and you just hate Morgus. And everything's written really well. Sharaz Jek's one of the best villains. The setting's really good. It's shot amazingly by Graham Harper. It's written amazingly by Robert Holmes. It goes a really dark theme and sends Peter Davison out on an amazing note. And you see, that I didn't even need to put any thought into that. It just all came out, and honestly, I could go on for hours about how good the Caves of Androzani is, but we're going to limit it to just about a minute here, so we don't run over time. But the Caves of Androzani, objectively the best story. Personally, not my favourite Fifth Doctor story, but it comes about 6th on the top 10. Spoilers when I do come around to doing the top 50, which I'm going to do at the end of this top 5 Doctor series. But anyway, watch the Caves of Androzani if you haven't. If you don't, you are missing out if you do not watch this story. It's so good. So a few honourable mentions before we get to number 1. So the first honourable mention is Snake Dance. It's a very good story. Not quite as good as Kinder, although sometimes I do like it more than Kinder. I don't know, it just kind of keeps on ping-ponging around in my mind. It goes a lot more psychedelic than Kinder, which I kind of like, but then I don't think the story's quite as solid. But yeah, it's still a really good story, and fun fact, it's Martin Clunes' TV debut, so there you go if you're a fan of Martin Clunes, because he's quite a good actor. I like him on Doc Martin. I'm not that I'm an avid Doc Martin watcher, but it's occasionally on the TV because my mum likes it, and it's fairly funny. Another honourable mention is The Visitation. This is quite a good story, quite underrated if I am to believe. Like, not many people go on about this, but I just think it's really well done, interesting concept. It's all done well. The only problem is it's not exactly the best directed story, particularly, because when they're about to execute the Doctor and Richard Mace, they hold the scythe the wrong way. But oh well. The last honourable mention is Frontios. Now, this is another really underrated story. It's thoroughly enjoyable. It's got kind of a great soundtrack to it, great kind of just premise, and plus tractators. Like you get Buddy Turlo running around just screaming tractators. It's hilarious. How is it not a meme? I really wish it was a meme. But oh well, and there are all my honourable mentions. So now we move on to number 1. So at number 1 we have the one, the only Earthshock. So this is my third favourite episode of all time, but just on a side note, I'm not a huge fan of how the Cybermen are done here. I mean, David Banks puts in an excellent performance, but I prefer how the Cybermen were done in the 60s, really, but it's just kind of a minor gripe. It's still my favourite story with Cybermen in. I'm just clarifying it's not my favourite Cybermen story, if you know what I mean. But anyway, how bloody good is Earthshock? Oh, it's quite an episode. It's just flows perfectly. It's written really well. Everything just kind of meshes together well, and it's a very good send off for Adric. And also, part 1 is one of my favourite Doctor Who episodes. In fact, I'd say out of episodes, that's my favourite individual episode. While the parts of Adric are neither here nor there, the parts in the cave with the 2 androids are really, really well done. It builds up a really creepy atmosphere with the all the music and the fact that you can't really see them. You get little traces, and when like Snyder gets shot and like you hear on the phone like Baines and Bolter are dead, Schneider, get out of there, and like they're standing in a blood, and it pans upwards onto the androids. It's so well done. It's such an amazing story, and that's why it comes in at number 1.